very good evening to all of you, to all the people who have registered for this session. I know you're all serious about your career, and that is the reason you've registered and you're here. So this particular session is a series. I'm just calling it Career Discussion with Kavita. The first episode was about civil engineering students and what is in it for them when they come into the industry. So this is the second episode. Here we talk about mechanical engineering students for their entry-level jobs, entry-level career stage. When they come into the industry, what is the industry expecting out of them, and what is that the students can prepare themselves. So, okay, before I introduce the guests, I just want to show you, one specific thing to all the students. Okay, this is about the company. So, Talentegrity takes care of the entire HR services. So we do HR consulting services, recruitment services, and training services. Training will be very custom training for specific companies for a specific need. When we talk about career management, this is my favorite Venn diagram, and I want this message to be there for all the students. So we need to understand what we really love doing, what the world needs, what are we extremely good at, and what can be paid for. So when all this intersects, so that is what this is a Japanese term called ikigai, which means purpose. So when we know the purpose, we will be able to do a lot better than whatever we are doing currently. So for all the students, this is a simple message. So when you start getting into the work, look at all these four things and start listing it out, and then choose and narrow down wherever you want to go. And it is only you are responsible for your own career. So you need to craft your career the way you want and then grow. So this is the only message that I just want to give it to all the students before we start the session. Yeah, so I'll just introduce the panelists. So we have two panelists today. We have Dr. Saravanan Gopal. He's NPI leader at Caterpillar India. So he's got overall 23 years of experience at Caterpillar. He's grown right from a quality or inspection engineer from 1997 till now, and now his role is as NPI leader for India Earth Moving Division, Caterpillar. He did his BE Mechanical Engineering from Madras University, followed by MBA, and then he did his PhD from Anna University. This long list of awards and accolades. This is just a very short gist of the entire list. He's a member and past president of Rotary Club of Royapeta, Chennai, academician and adjunct faculty for many colleges for guest lectures for engineering students. He's published research papers in 14 international journals. He received 2 patents from Caterpillar Inc., that's from the US. He's received more than 20 awards and recognitions from various bodies and organizations for excellence in educational leadership, community development, and social responsibility. He's winner of Young Philanthropist Award from Young Professionals of Caterpillar in 2013 and featured in CAT Careers, media published by Caterpillar GDIO in April 2019. Welcome, Dr. Saravanan. A privilege to host you.
Thank you, Kavita.
Next on the panel is Mr. Harihar. He's the co-founder, ALS Engineering Solutions. He did his BE Mechanical Engineering from College of Engineering, India, Anna University, followed by MS Industrial Engineering from the University of Texas, Arlington. He's got more than 20 years of experience in the industry, especially in automotive, electronics, manufacturing, and supply chain industries. He spent 13 years in the corporate, both in US and India together, with stint with Nokia as a program manager, PMO, and strategic development for about 8 years, taking care of Nokia operations in India. And last 7 years, he's become an entrepreneur. So the technical experience of Harihar includes greenfield projects for warehousing operations, mobile phone manufacturing, industrial distribution, B2B commerce, and engineering services entity. and he moved to entrepreneurial experience, and he's got a good experience in running an engineering product and services company in the areas of manufacturing and supply chain. His key strengths include operations, transformation programs, business strategy, facilitation and rollouts, financial planning, and P&L management. And he's really excited about Make in India, Digital India, and adopting newer technologies in manufacturing. I think that is what has pushed him to move from his corporate life to become an entrepreneur. Welcome, Arihar. Pleasure to host you. And I think that is a cue that the students can actually take it from Arihar as well. So welcome
Thank you,
both the
Kavita.
panels. Yes. And maybe you can just talk 2 minutes about your company, Arihar. People will understand what you're actually doing before we move on to the questions.
Yeah. So can you hear me now?
Yes, Arihar.
Yeah. So hi, good evening all. I'm really happy to be speaking to fellow CEGNs. I think most of them are CEGNs, so really happy to be speaking to my college mates. So what I do currently is I run a firm which we deal with products and services for the manufacturing and supply chain industry. In products, what we do is some category of products we do technical sales where we study the manufacturing need. We go in the design, then we kind of make, using our channel partner, we make those products. Certain products we are basically a catalog company, and we have started manufacturing a few products recently, outsourcing them. So that's on the product side. And services side, we're into all engineering services, like we do process inspection, audits, inventory audits, we do equipment inspection. We also have a team handling 2D and CAD design conversions. We do jigs design for manufacturing companies. We are also into consulting for electronic manufacturing firms on how to have a proper manufacturing workspace. And then we are also a bit slowly venturing into supply chain consulting. So, and we cover most of the common industries which support mechanical engineering, like automotive, electronics, general engineering. We also work with a few power and steel companies. Food processing, we are into food process audit. Actually, we audit food processing companies and kind of give information on what are the standards they need to improve. We also work with logistics companies. And with the COVID situation, we have also branched out into surgical supplies just 2 months ago, where we are primarily starting with COVID production supplies, but we are actually starting to slowly manufacture some of the items and looking at possibly export into other parts of the world. So I think that's a quick 2-minute introduction about what I do with my company. And
Okay.
yeah, thank you, Kavita.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, Hari. So let me move to Dr. Saravanan. So predominantly the entire audience is all students. So what are the different roles that you see for the students who are currently studying mechanical engineering? So when they come out, what are the different roles that are available outside in the industry?
People who are going to be part of the nation building. So first of all, be proud to be a mechanical engineer. In fact, Mr. Harihar is there and I'm here. So first of all, be proud to be the right opportunity, right avenue to be in the industry. And you all know that the very purpose of choosing a mechanical industry is to have a wide spectrum of opportunities that are available. So I would say certain avenues or opportunities where you can fit in any of these scope, like you are not restricted to only one. To name a few, first of all, any mechanical engineer can choose a design scope at all. The first instance, I would say the starting would be in AutoCAD, CATIA, and a lot of mechanical engineering software has come, and that is one of the prime path for any hardcore mechanical engineering to choose. So that is one thing which is always ever growing, and you can always choose that. Second, I would always say product development is another field or another avenue. In the manufacturing, definitely it's called the production design or the process engineering. where you actually design the process, design the manufacturing aspect of it. So that is the next avenue where you can always look for. And the evergreen quality aspect, which even I started my career in the quality department, and I was there for 12 years. So that is there. There are different levels and different kinds of quality. The transition of quality from earlier it was quality control to what is quality management and assurance. That is something phenomenal that has happened. And next, I would say supply chain and logistics. This is one thing which is unique and which is available across the value chain. You can select it not only for in a mechanical industry, if at all in later part of your career, like Mr. Harigar is going to, you want to switch over. If you have a stint in supply chain and logistics, that will have a good foothold or holding for you to take it further. Next would be the purchasing. The another one aspect which would really help the mechanical engineers is the purchasing part of it. Then, of course, sales and marketing are always there, and your technical expertise and credentials go a long way in getting to know how to sell a product, how to market a product, and how to go about it. And within factory, within an industry, there is always a product compliance perspective of it. So you all know that for the roadable vehicles, we are supposed to go into Bharat Stage 4 by October 2020. Now it has been extended till April 2021. So the product compliance team, the product compliance aspect or the division or the department would really help to understand the government norms, regulations, and give to the different industrial people to work onto it. Of course, the transportation is another aspect where you can, it's not just getting a movement of just the material from one place to another. It is the design of transportation, how it has to be, the economic of it, and how it has to be executed. Next is the most important thing, the strategical portion of it. So there are always two types of functions in the mechanical industry. One is the tactical, the other is strategical. So during the start of your career, you will always start with the tactical portion of it. So as you grow in the career ladder, you must be in a position to do a strategy kind of a work, wherein that is most important. And this mechanical engineering knowledge will be supported towards that. And of course, facilities engineering, maintenance, process excellence. One good thing most of the companies have adopted or embraced now as the process excellence activities like Lean, Six Sigma, and many quality initiatives. And you need not be there alone. Even I was selected, I was preferred to be in a totally different function, what like Kavita was doing, training and development. A mechanical engineer would be a most appropriate person, I would say, to coach, to train, and to execute that. Of course, there are orders management, packaging preservation, product support, and services. So these are various avenues which are open. But people think it's a mechanical industry, they'll go and work in only operations, they'll work in manufacturing. It is not like that. There are humpty number of opportunities. I named actually 20, 25 opportunities. If you go into deep, there are hundreds and hundreds of opportunities. It will always come from a mechanical engineer. So over to Kavita for any next question or any clarification on that.
Okay, so that is wonderful. There are so many roles that is existing for mechanical engineering students.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There were a lot of questions about opportunities in public sector units. So, Arihar, would you be able to, talk about it? Because I've collected some questions prior to this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So just give a quick idea about PSUs. So public sector PSUs are public sector undertakings. Basically, these are companies majorly owned by the government. The good thing is these are really, really large companies which needs massive investment, and they are mostly for the welfare of the public. So in that sense, we're going to have continuous public support for these companies. And I quickly looked at the numbers. In manufacturing alone, we have close to 69 public sector units. And then in services, about 100. And assuming that in services, we might even get about 20 to 30 more related to mechanical engineering. So we have close to 100 public sector companies. These are really large companies. For example, we're talking about ONGC, we're talking about Indian Oil, BHEL, Hindustan Aeronautics. And in services, we have Engineers India, then we have some EPC companies. So there are a lot of companies which cover range anywhere from oil refineries to steel manufacturing to power manufacturing to engineering services. The thing about public sector PSUs are to get into PSUs. One has to they do some campus interviews. Apart from campus, it's mandatory to write a GATE exam to get into PSUs. Then the other option is to do a ME or a postgraduate to get into PSUs. The good thing about public sector understandings are, since they are catered towards the welfare of the whole country, and these are really massive investments. Governments will, they have been funding them, they will continue to fund them. The pay package is really attractive now. With the 7th pay commission, they are actually on par or even better than any private company. That's something I actually heard last week from another friend of mine as well. The benefits are really excellent. Once you put in the hard work for the GATE, and once there is proper talent and hard work, there is considerable amount of job security. Considering the private, which is subject to recession and all other issues, public sector, the security and the growth is really, really high. And then the other factor is, working at PSUs kind of gives you a sense of pride. You're working for a large company, government company. You're working for a company which caters to the country as a whole. There's I would say a pride factor, a proud factor working with that. Then the other aspect is, there's a lot of exposure we can get with PSUs. In fact, let's say my friend works with IOCL, and to my knowledge, they have plants pretty much all over the country, and they keep traveling all over the country. They learn different processes, different people, different culture, different place. So the amount of exposure they get is really high to considering working for a PSU. So overall, with the focus of the government, PSUs have been strengthening themselves. For example, HAL, they've been making great investments in aerospace recently, over the last few years, in fact, with all this new satellite launches. So there are a good number of opportunities for all the students in PSUs. The only thing is, they have to keep reminding themselves they have to crack the GATE exam and then go for that.
Okay. I think this is the best time for them to prepare for their GATE exams. And if, students, if you're very particular about PSUs, please focus on your GATE exams, because that's huge scope and companies would love to take you. And I think these days, because earlier, I think when we studied, there were different exams for different companies. I think now it is I think it is only the GATE exam. I think a lot of companies look at the GATE score and then they pick people for their jobs.
Yeah, for GATE score, and then they also give preference to ME from many of the top engineering
universities. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good academics, good GATE score, and your interest in that subject will actually help you land in any PSU job, students.
Yeah, just one other comment there, Kavita. See, earlier there used to be a big bias against PSUs, how would the environment be, etc. But they have actually improved a lot. I was speaking to my friend of my college 20 years. I spoke to him yesterday, and he said it's actually much better than some of the private engineering companies. The amount of learning, the amount of package, the amount of recognition they get. They get to present in national symposiums. In some cases, they actually even have the power to define processes they need to do, and then that kind of role gets rolled out to other industries as well. Kind of policy making also. So there's a lot of benefits to that, not just work, but then you can actually contribute in some segments to the development of the whole country.
Great. Okay. Okay, my next question is to Dr. Saravanan. So all of them are students, so they all are interested to know what is the expectation from the industry. What do they expect from a fresher when they just come out of the college and meet the industry, meet the people from the industry? What is the expectation from the industry? What is that they look at for a fresh engineering grad?
Yeah. So if any one of the participant, maybe from CEG also, can speak up now, what in your perspective would be the expectation from a fresher for an industry? Can anyone of you speak up?
Sure. Hey, you can just unmute yourself and talk if somebody volunteers.
Come on, CG guys. Any one of you?
I don't know if all of them are CG, but I think there are a lot of people. You can just unmute and talk.
Whoever it is.
Yeah. Mechanical engineering students, one of you can just unmute and talk.
What in your perspective you think?
Yeah. What do you think, the company expects?
Would expect from you.
No, I don't think
Okay.
anyone is willing to unmute and talk here.
So the first thing is leave this shyness. You need to bubble with energy and start speaking up. So that is the first thing what I would say. So before starting, what are the expectations? So anyone should counteract, start and say, okay. First of all, the most important thing is your fundamental knowledge. Of course, your fundamentals are very, very important. But I don't expect you to mug up and learn everything and as you write in an, it is not expected in that way. But the concept and the application of the concepts what you have learned are very important, and the fundamentals go a long way. So first and foremost thing is you read. So that is the first thing. Second, coming to an industry, they don't go economics or fundamentals. So they look for other quality, other expectations from a student. So I would say the first and foremost thing is accountability. How much you are accountable when a job is given to you. So what is the difference between an accountability and responsibility? The next comes the responsibility. So when you are given a task, when you are given a job, if it goes well, yes, you take the credit, you claim that it has been done. Suppose if it doesn't go right, so you stand with your team and say, yes, we did our best part, but it didn't go well. But I take the responsibility, I take the accountability that it was not delivered properly. So is that kind of thing you have? Is that kind of a tenure you have? So that is the first and foremost thing we look for. And the second one is, of course, the responsibility. How much you are responsible when you are given a task, when you are given a job, and how you take it forward as you grow in the organization. So that is the second important thing we look for. And more or less, which goes with the accountability and responsibility, the ownership. So assume that you become a manufacturing engineer. So how much pride and ownership you have when you say that I belong to this company. Assume I work for Caterpillar. I work for Caterpillar. I am a mechanical engineer and I am the manufacturing engineer of this particular value stream. How much ownership you have? What is the amount of importance and attachment you have towards the job? So that is the next one. And the most important thing is the attitude. So that is what in most of the cases we fail to see now. Have a very positive attitude at this point of time. You must have a positive attitude every way, but still, when you go for a job, as a fresher to a mechanical industry, have a very, very positive outlook. Don't look for the salary. Of course, the salary is very, very important. I don't deny to that. But to a starting career, your particular role to that particular organization matters a lot. So your attitude towards the job matters. Next, we look for a person, how much he can be dependable. Meaning to say, if I give a task to you, can I just ignore about it, forget about it, and you will do it or not? Or I need to follow up umpty number of times. So this is the next I look for in a candidate, how much he is dependable. Of course, the next and important thing is, as Mr. Harigar was also mentioning, your continual learning abilities and skills. Are you a person who is quenchant for learning and improving yourself? Or just, I have finished my BE, that's it, I want to get a job and get settled in life. Or you are have appetite for learning and developing. So that is the next thing we'll be looking for. And the most important, another important thing is, are you self-motivated? Nobody should be questioned. Nobody should be motivated to do a work. You must be self-motivated. One expectation why I started while telling about this, the initial thing is, someone has to come forward and say, I am motivated already. I am going to come up and speak up. Self-motivation is very important. And next comes the power of working together. You are going to work in an organization where there will be a completely diverse workforce. There may be workers, there may be peers, there may be subordinates, there may be superiors than you, and it will be a complete diverse workforce in an organization, unlike in a college or school. So how we are going to work together with them? So that really matters. So you must see, you must be very inclusive, get along with them, and get the best out of it. So that is the next skill. And of course, the most important thing is the communication skill. What do you mean by communication skill? It is not the skill of speaking in English at all. You can speak in your native language. You can speak in Tamil. You can speak in Telugu. You can speak in Hindi. But how you are able to communicate what you really wanted to the other person. So that is more important. So that kind of an ability we look for. And being in an organization as a mechanical engineer and a person for a future growth opportunity, how you present yourself, how present pleasing you present yourself. That is another important thing which we look for. And the next thing is, suppose if you are put in the job in a different place, in a different state or in a different country, because Caterpillar is an MNC, you are bound to be transferred to any part of the world. So how you will be adaptable to that? Are you very make yourself aligned to only certain parts of the world or parts of the region, or you are open to move? So how you are adaptable to that? And another important thing is your integrity. Integrity is nothing but the honesty. How much you are dependable, how much you are integral when you are given a job to you. And always have a focus on quality. So your quality focus, the importance of quality, those things will be seen while taking you as a, and the next important is the result oriented. Are you just coming there to work, earn money and go back, or you are really result oriented? You really wanted to get the things done out of it. And I would say, last but not the least, how you are going to have an innovation kind of a mind. Meaning to say, you are not going to restrict yourself from the learnings that you have from the application part of you in the organization. How you innovate continuously over a period of time. Small innovations as you work along. So these are, I would say, some of the tenets. Definitely, I have interviewed many people in CEG, in other colleges. These things I will be looking for. I would say in the just 20 to 25 minutes to interview a candidate, these tenets can be easily seen and spotted out. So it is not just your fundamental knowledge. These are the aspects we see when we interview candidate. These are the tenets. If you can make a note of it, please do it. And I would repeat for the benefit of the students. Of course, your technical and fundamental knowledge. Next is the accountability, responsibility, your ownership towards the job, positive attitude, dependability, continual learning, your self-initiation or self-motivation, the power of working together in an organization, communication and presentation skills, adaptability when you are put in a diverse background, integrity, the quality focused what you have, you are result focused or result oriented, and of course the innovative aspect of it. So I think these are more than enough. If you have these kind of tenets, at least if you have 6 or 7 tenets of what I told, definitely you will be a potential candidate for an organization.
Okay, that was like great. Yeah, so these are the things, you know, generally industry will look at from a fresher students. So please look at all these things, and all of them are something that, you know, all of you can just develop. Hari, you want to add anything? Or
Yeah, I think Saran has covered most of it. And I also would like to touch back on the point he said, you know, mechanical is a versatile department, right? So you can pretty much fit into any role that one can actually, one company has. You can either be a designer, or you can also be in logistics, purchasing, buying. And I worked in two organizations all my life, 6 years in one company, another 8 years in another company. In both these companies, the way I got selected was mostly on the soft skills and nothing on the technical skills. And I'm thinking most companies today are looking for soft skills than technical, because technical is something that you can learn. There are enough training material. These are more conceptual. There's more on-the-job training, but they primarily look for soft skills. You know, you have a basic domain knowledge, but then it really depends on all the points that Saranan said. I think that's more important.
yep, I think that pretty much covers everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So Hari, the next question is about entrepreneurship, because you yourself is you know, turned an entrepreneur after a good amount of corporate experience.
Right. Yeah.
So would you also look at that as a career opportunity for them, or what is in it, you know, from the industry perspective that you would like to talk about?
See, I'll also touch base on the the COVID situation people were actually asking, and then related
Okay.
to entrepreneurship.
Okay.
Right? I think, see, one thing about the COVID situation, I think people will have to understand this is like one of an event in last 100 years. You know, nobody was prepared for it. Nobody would be prepared. And always, you know, market will actually rebound to the last year, or it will get back to new, it will send to a new normal actually. You know, so people, I think most of them should take away the COVID situation. That's something out of our control. Things will settle in 2-3 months. I have some data points for that from June 2020 and from my own experience, you know. So we were pretty much down March, April, May. You know, our sales were pretty much zero. June, we were almost close to 80% of our sales. In a month, we were actually back to normal, what we were in February. Okay,
That's very
pretty
good.
Yeah. And then, okay, I'll go with the other three segments, you know, looking at the car, motorcycle, commercial and tractor segment. Car segment is already 50% up to what it was 2019 June.
Okay.
Motorcycle is almost close to 70% to what it was in 2019. Commercial vessel hasn't picked up because the commercial transportation has still been locked down, you know, because of the buses, etc. Tractor segment is almost a 20% more than what it was last year because of the good monsoons, because of the agriculture growth, it's picking up. So these are 4 segments, and these 4 segments are driving other segments like your power, steel, oil, etc. You know, manufacturing drives most of the other segments around it. You know, with half the states still locked down, with half the world in still locked down, I would say we're almost 50-60% up within a month. So I mean, I think most of them are surprised. You know, there are people negative saying, okay, we are 50% only down, but I see that we're almost 50% up with half the world in being locked down. So there is a lot of positivity, and things will only pick up within a month or 2 because people want to go back. People are going to need cars. People are going to need scooters. Exports are, people need generators. Everything is needed, you know. So in the sense, the market is good. We should not worry about the COVID. It will settle itself.
In fact,
now,
Hari, I can add one point to that. So
yes,
we covered most of the automobile and related sectors. If you take my industry, where it's a completely a construction and mining industry, Caterpillar in construction and mining industry, as you rightly told, we were down in the month of January, February, and March. April and May, we saw the rebound, and it was actually going on 20% positive than it was in the last year. So we were surprised to see how this got really adjusted and rebound back. So to the students here, don't worry about that. As Mr. Hari here said, it's only a very temporary phenomenon, and good days are ahead for us.
Yep.
Sorry, you can go to Mr. Hari here.
Yeah. Thank you, Saran. Actually, that helped also. You know, so these are the segments which drive the industry, manufacturing industry. You know, we've covered pretty much all the segments. Now, when coming to entrepreneurship, you know, one thing is there is no good time or bad time. You know, markets are always cyclic. You can start always whenever you want. But the only thing that I would stress upon entrepreneurship is one critical path in becoming an entrepreneur is financial independence. You know, we need to really look at the fact that, you know, when you are becoming an entrepreneur, there are chances that you're going to have a little bit of financial instability for at least 2 to 5 years, depending on the case. You know, sometimes you might be off within a year, sometimes it might take 4 or 5 years to settle down. So can you actually survive till that point? You know, 2 to 4 years. I mean, it's not only you, right? There's a family to support in Indian system. If we can take the chance, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, then I would suggest if we have a good idea, either in product or manufacturing, if you're able to put in the time, you know, if you're committed for the long haul, I would always support people should try that, because in India, one good thing about India is we have, you know, 1.3 billion people. There are so many various needs, so many new things coming up. So the opportunities are always immense. You know, that's one thing actually which made me come back to India, because of the opportunity over here. Whatever idea which started with good commitment and good finance, most of them have been successful. I don't think anybody has actually gone back.
Yep.
And even in my case, when I started in 11, 12 we had a recession, and then 19 we had a recession, and 20 we had a COVID event. But then we still feel positive because the market is still young, the country is still growing. You know, so I think we should not worry about it. But only thing I want to say is, if you want to get into entrepreneurship, please think about the financial commitment. Are you willing to go the long haul for at least 2 to 5 years? If yes, then yeah, I would support it anytime. Over to you, Kavita. Anything else you want to add, because you're an entrepreneur itself after being so many years?
Yeah. So, but I'm seeing a lot of young entrepreneurs, because we all did after a good amount of corporate experience, and then we moved to entrepreneurship. But I'm seeing a lot of very young budding entrepreneurs coming up. That's a good sign, but that they just need a little more guidance and the right perspective to take it forward. But I'm seeing that happening today. That's a good sign, actually, because a lot of incubation centers have been opened, and people are being mentored the right way. Okay, so there were a few other questions. So I think with respect to the COVID situation, I think we've kind of answered that. Is there any other specific question from the audience? You can just put it in the chat box. We will be happy to take those questions. There's one other question on whether we should do higher studies or we need to look for a job. That's always kind of lingering in the third year, final year students' mind. Do I need to prepare for my higher studies, or do I need to go for a job now? So what will be your take, Saravanan?
See, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Iyer, you can speak.
Yeah, both of you. I mean, you can tell the students whatever you.
It's okay. All we have done high studies, so we'll go one by one. Saran, you can start, Saran. I'll follow you.
Yeah, between both of you, I think you did the MS immediately after doing your BE, Hari.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Saravanan took up. Saravanan took up a job immediately after engineering. Yeah. So both of you can have your perspective here for the question.
True. My perspective, I thought once I did my engineering, I got the opportunity to work for Caterpillar was earlier Hindustan Motors, and I got into there, and that shaped my career, and that really shaped my understanding of engineering. So from my perspective, I always feel that when you get into a job, you try to hone your skills, whatever you learned in colleges, and try to get into hold of it. So that will help you to shape your career, to shape your future learning aspect also. So when you want to go to an industry, please go there, stick on there for 2 to 3 years. Don't try to be there for 6 months or 1 year and come out. Please at least be there for 2 to 3 years, and then look for opportunities for higher studies and other kind of activities. So this is what I have seen the success formula. But there are also other perspectives or other aspects of it, what Mr. Harier would have seen and experienced.
See, in my case, when I finished my BE, I was little worried that if I would not study now, if I would take it a job, then I may not have the motivation to study later. So that was my whole point. But some people get the job experience, do a high study. Some people do right in front. But either way, I always support higher studies. It's an added skill. It gives you that advantage anyway in the industry. So it's just a matter of timing. Either now or 3 years down the line, doesn't really matter. But it's a must, I would say, at some point.
I agree. I mean, so with that, even my personal view is, would advise the students to go for higher studies. Either you plan it immediately after your studies, or a little later, gain a little bit of industry experience and do that. It is also absolutely helpful. But depending on your personal situation and how you want to take your professional career, but you must do your PG to specialize yourself in whatever areas you're interested in.
So as Kavita mentioned, it need not be in engineering at all. I mean, don't think that you should go in for engineering or only for PG. You can always choose a career in a supply chain management. You can choose a career in anything which of your liking, and then take it further. So one question I am seeing is, does automation leads to reduced job opportunities? So definitely no. In fact, we need more people for making it automized. Because if you take Caterpillar, we do a big machines. The machines are, I would say, when you see a truck on the road, it would at least be 2 floors of height. So that is being done in a manual way. So we are trying to put in automation in each and every aspect of it. And for that, we need people. We need innovative ideas. So automation doesn't mean we are going to lose job or reduce job opportunities. It's going to improve and increase the job opportunities.
True. There is one other question actually from material science students. So
Okay.
they are asking, like, why is it little difficult for the material science students to get into any job? So would they also be looked at like mechanical engineering students, because they study slightly different subjects?
So, yeah, MBBS studied person is also called as a doctor, and a BDS is also a doctor. Both are doctors. They study more or less the same kind of curriculum, but still, a BDS person takes a core aspect of it, a specialization in the initial stage itself. Whereas an MBBS does a broad perspective, and then he might go in for the specialization. The same is the case of material science and engineering students. So, predominantly you will be having many of the mechanical engineering stream activities or the curriculum also. That is good, but still you are getting into a niche market. You are going to go in a specialized area, like I would say you are going to design something, you are going to create something, a material that would be suited for a mechanical industry. So that's why you sometimes feel that you may not be fitting into any mechanical industry or organization, but that's not the truth. I would say there are humbly number of opportunities. Like if you take, for example, any CAD engineer, a CAD, I will not say a CAD technician, any CAD engineer, if he's from a mechanic or a material science, that would be great, because he knows what to design, what is the mechanics of the material that needs to be brought in his design. So that is one good opportunity. And of course, we are in dearth of metallurgists. We don't have metallurgists. In fact, the amount of people choosing metallurgy has come down drastically. And even in Caterpillar, we look for a person who takes material science or metallurgy as their career. So we do accept those people. And a metallurgist or a material science engineer can fit into a process or product development engineer also, role also, wherein you are the person who are going to say what kind of a material, what is the optimum level of material to be put to get a reliable product. So that is the core, I would say, the activity of or function of you, what you possess. Of course, you can go in for biomedical, geotechnical, and manufacturing systems also. There are humpty number of opportunities in similar what a mechanical engineer would be having. So there is no worry, there is no fear of whether you are going to get or not. In fact, I would say last year, when we came in for campus interview at CEG, we told, please allow mechanical engineers, production industry engineers, industrial engineers, and material science engineers also into, and of course the automobile engineers. So these 5 streams were allowed to take their interview in one stretch. So you are always welcome, and that would be an added advantage to you.
Okay, wonderful.
Nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it's good to hear, because I've been hearing from the material science students that they still feel that they might not have the opportunities equivalent to that of the mechanical engineering students. That's just a little bit stigmatized. So we will
In
have
fact,
to.
I'll add one other point there, Kavita. In fact, material science specialists are actually much needed in computer industry. To study the heat failure of a processor. Actually, that plays a huge
Sorry,
role
which
over
industry, Hari?
there. Electronic industry, when they
Electronic industry. Okay.
yeah, because the component actually fails under heat.
Mm.
That's where material sciences play a huge role. In fact, they are much more needed over there. I mean, that's from my knowledge. But then actually, Saran pretty much answered the other part.
Great. So great to know that.
One student, Ramesh Babu from final year CEG, has asked whether Caterpillar recruit through off-campus also. Yes, we do recruit off-campus, not in the same way as we do for the on-campus interview, because we have a set process to go in for on-campus and selection. We do have a few category or a few reservation for off-campus also. But the other way of getting into it is work in an industry for 1 or 2 years and you can get into Caterpillar. So either you can get in through online, on campus, or you work in another industry for 1 or 2 years, and there is always scope for getting into Caterpillar. So
okay.
I think that answers your question.
Right.
Okay. Hey, there is one question on robotics. How robotics is going to be helpful, or what is the scope for robotics in these industries? So one of you could answer that.
Okay. If you see from a mining industry, so I come from a mining industry. So the structures are really, really huge. In fact, when you actually come and see structure, what we are doing, what we are welding, or what we are manufacturing in the Caterpillar, which is unimaginable. So, so many years. Caterpillar is almost in India. It's 50 years. It's going to be, when it comes in 2021, it is 50 years. So we were all doing manual welding, but for the past 7 or 8 years, we migrated to robotics. So all the precise welding activities have been converted from a manual welding to robotics. There are many advantages in that. Of course, the quality of it, the reliability of it is perfectly matched, and the duration, it's perfect duration, and the fatigue to the operator. You all know, when it comes to structures, the amount of welding and the amount of fatigue the operator has is enormous. So that has been completely eliminated, and this automotive process or the robotic really helps in those kind of things. So I am telling from a bigger perspective, and robotics is not applicable to those alone. Even for small activities, small initiatives, or small engineering aspects of it, robotics comes in play in recent times. So maybe Harigar, you can also touch upon where other areas where robotics can help and support the students here.
Yeah, see, from my experience in two industries, I've primarily worked in automotive and electronics. As you said, automotive paint shop has been completely robotized. Earlier, they were actually people who were using paint guns to paint it, but then robotics has been brought in to improve the quality. This has been done ages ago. The next one is in body shop. Exactly same point what you said, Saran, the welding part of it. You know, it's all been automated welding now. And then in my electronics industry, you know, we used to have. I used to work for Nokia, where we used to make phones. You know, we used to make really high volume. We were making close to 600 phones in 1 hour at some point in 2012, 11, somewhere around that point. And a phone has about 12 to 13 screws. So imagine a person trying to screw so much. So then we bought a robotics at that place. We were trying to get something in there. So there are a lot of applications for robotics, and India predominantly has been that, okay, we have labor, but then now that's changing. We are also moving towards the point where we would want to minimize the repetitive jobs. We want to go accuracy. We want to move to robotics. We're trying to get into that actually much faster. You know, I've been out of the field, but then I work with a few companies now, and I can see that they're all investing a lot in robotics now, buying robotic arms and etc.
Yeah, one is the precision of it, the quality aspect of it, and as you rightly told, when it's going to be mass production, robotics can come in force very handy. So that would be, I would say, the next big thing that's going to happen in most of the industries. And robots are not as costly as we think. So now there are a lot of other ways of cutting down the cost and bring robots into the manufacturing sector.
Okay, great. Okay, so these are the maybe recent automations that is happening in the industry, and probably, you know, people are interested in those developments. I think we're almost done. Any other questions from the audience? We'll just take it and then we can close it.
So they've asked for webinar link, feedback link, of course.
Okay. So I don't have all this feedback links or any e-certificate. Somebody was asking. So, okay, fine. I'm doing this just for the benefit of the students, for them to know about this. And the recorded video will also be available, in the YouTube for reference. So anybody can just go and take benefit of this, Syed.
And feel free if you can.
Just feel free, because this is organized only for you. I mean, you all need to get the maximum benefit out of this. We couldn't come and do the session in the colleges, and that is why we're doing this online.
Yeah. And you can always get in touch with Kavita, and you can get to know for any clarifications. Mr. Harigar is there and I'm there.
Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, we can always, even after the webinar, after this session, we'll be more than happy to help our students to get their doubts clarified.
Absolutely.
One question.
What are the other skills that we can learn during this time? You have to choose that, Girishesh Kumar. You have to choose what you want to study.
Always don't go and study, man. Always try to go with your passion.
Yeah.
Don't always see that only studies and so I need to do something different. Go with your passion. Whatever you like, this is the time where you can at least try to inculcate and try to learn something what you really like. So the time may not be available once you get into your college, and you will be into the regular stream. if you want to play cricket, don't go now. Police will beat us. Once this lockdown and those kind of stuff are gone, try to learn that. If you are good in singing, try to get that particular skill. In fact, these kind of seminars and webinars, it's again new to us. I used to go to college and give lectures, but again, this is what we try to get the benefit out of this particular situation and try to do something different.
Yeah, I know. And today, I mean, these days, I think we're all on different platforms to do a lot of webinars, and we moved out of seminars. And I don't know, I'm calling it, there's a Zoom fatigue that is, catching all of us these days. So just choose whatever you want to do, and then, just go for it, Girishesh. Okay,
So,
I think we've
I think-
almost covered. Any concluding remarks, Hari and Saravanan?
I just have one point I'll make. See, one thing to the students is like, on the positive note, see, with this whole situation of COVID and the China thing, I mean, it can be concerning for many. For me personally, I import a lot from China. In fact, speaking now, I have some shipments stuck in the port. That's a different story. But then, the opportunity for the country is we are the only country which can actually potential whatever China does. I think that's what the students need to actually understand. We have been last 20 years we focused on services, IT development, etc. But then with the whole world ganging against China, trying to find an alternative, I don't think they're going to find so many people with so much technical knowledge anywhere in the world other than India. I think that's my message. And even in this situation, we are still positive because the whole Make in India thing, if planned well, it will really kick off in 1 to 2 years and people would not have to worry about it. So I think that's something that I want to share as my personal experience with students that keep, there's nothing to be worried actually in a country like us. So I think that's my message.
Great. Saravanan, any concluding remarks?
Yeah, if you take, Caterpillar is a MNC based out of US, and usually predominantly they cover the market segment of North America, South America, and Europe, and they are less focused on Asia Pacific. So the target or the most focused area was China. So in fact, for the past 6 or 7 years, they had a tag of win in China and how to get into China and how to grow the business in the Asia Pacific region, keeping China as the focus. But now, I would say for the past 2 to 3 years, the complete focus has been shifted to India. So even I would see a lot of win in India opportunities. In Caterpillar, now they understood, yes, enough of China, not because of these reasons, but the most reliable partner and the most technical asset available is in India. And people are coming towards India, and there are a lot of activities towards win in India aspect that's going to happen. So take pride of what you have selected, what you are learning. And one advice I would say is don't just go by reading. Try to apply those kind of readings in any of the activity what you do. So that will help you. That will help you to understand what you have read and go at a long way to get a job or in your higher studies. So I think with this, definitely the students will be of benefit. And if you have any clarifications, doubts, feel free to ask us. We'll be more than happy to support. All the very best.
Yeah, that is absolutely very, very positive by hearing both from Hari and Saravanan that, so we have a good amount of potential now, I think, in India. And all of you students who are all studying today, I think you're all the future leaders and feel proud about where we are and what we are doing. And I think the next thing is on you. So please go for whatever you like it and you will make wonders. So thank you very much. Thank you, Saravanan, and thank you, Hari, for your time. I know despite all your busy schedules, both of you have allocated this time for the students. Thank you very much. And thank you all the participants who have registered and come in today for the session. So feel free, reach out to us even if you have any questions. So it was great discussing with you both, Hari. I'm sure it should be useful for the students.
No, you have my email, so anybody wants to come and please send it.
Get in touch. I'll do that. I'll definitely do that. So if they have any specific thing, I would definitely connect them with you guys.
Sure. Okay.
Hey, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you, Saravanan.
Thank you, Kavita. Thank you, Hari. Thank you, students. All the very best.
All the best to all of you.
Bye.